Verruckt. Often seen as one of the scariest and hardest maps Call of Duty Zombies has ever seen in its history. First released on March 19, 2009, Verruckt was the second map ever to release to zombies, and it added new innovations to the game. The introduction of the 4 core perks was made in this map, with Juggernog, Quick Revive, Speed Cola, and Double Tap, as well as the new electric traps that can kill on any round and are seen everywhere around the map. Although these new innovations to the map made it seem slightly easier to that of Nocturne and Toten, the thought of such was an illusion. Combined with the infamous super sprinters, tight corridors, and inadequate zombie spawns, this map is a genuine challenge for the lesser and more experienced players alike. However, there have been a multitude of those who were crazy enough to do high rounds on this map, and before taking a look at the history of these records, I think it's important that we establish how high rounds work on this map. World at War saw the release of 4 unique zombies maps throughout its lifecycle: Nocturne and Toten, Verruckt, Shinonuma, and Doerksen. And what is important to note is that on 3 out of the 4 of these maps, not including Doerksen, the zombie spawns capped at 24 per round. This means that there's only 24 zombies that spawn into the map each round, making high rounds reach insane numbers, especially on maps like Shinonuma with an adequate wonder weapon. However, since Verruckt lacks a wonder weapon of any kind, there are only 2 things that actually make these high rounds possible: the flamethrower and a feature unique to World at War, Black Ops 1, and Black Ops 2, insta-kill rounds. While the flamethrower is generally the main strategy, insta-kill rounds are another factor to which the high rounders have to consider. If you don't know what insta-kill rounds are, it's a little complicated, but essentially, starting on round 163, the zombie's health is virtually set back to what you would see on round 1. This is made possible because of an integer overflow in the zombie's health, and when a zombie's health reaches 2,147,483,647, it is essentially forced to go into the negatives. With this feature, zombies can be killed with relative ease after round 163 and whatever rounds come after. Now that you have a slight understanding of what we're getting into here, let's take a dive into the history of one of the most unforgiving maps in zombies history. On May 6, 2009, only about 2 months after the initial release of Verruckt, the first ever record was posted by a YouTuber named Nolwen. This record saw the achievement of round 60, and it would also introduce a new strategy that influenced the runs that would come later. This strategy saw spawning in on the jug side of spawn, opening to power, and eventually stopping once they reached Speed Cola. This limited the amount of places that zombies could spawn in, as unlike other zombies maps we see nowadays, the zombies spawn in at almost every single barrier possible on the map, regardless of your position in the asylum. With this strategy, it made high rounds not only efficient, but also generally faster for the average player. Nolwen did not stop at 60, however, and eventually gained a respectable round 90, which he was clearly not happy with because he bounced back and achieved round 148 sometime later. With this, the first ever round 100 was achieved on World at War Verruckt, and although there is no actual video evidence to back this up, Nolwen's strategy was clearly enough to reach those higher rounds. However, only reaching round 148 meant that Nolwen never did get far enough to reach the first insta-kill round, meaning that his entire playthrough was a legitimate feat, using a combination of the flamethrower and electric trap to deal with the zombies. However, the same cannot be said about a runner known as Dog Chocoloo. Almost 5 years after this initial record by Nolwen, Dog Chocoloo uploads his run to YouTube, absolutely annihilating Nolwen's record with a round of 481 on July 30th, 2014. This was the first high round that saw the insta-kill round being used, and it is very clear to see how much of an impact that could make on a run. Dog Chaka, however you say this guy's name, implemented the same strategy that Nolwen used in his high rounds, so he may just be that guy and blew Nolwen out of the water. With this establishment of a base, it was made very clear that Verruckt high rounds weren't only possible, but they could reach even crazier goals than what might have been previously thought to be possible. In the early months of 2016, a Twitch streamer known as Jim4495 would reach a respectable round of 496. However, despite there only being a slight difference in round count, Jim would implement a new strategy that would be crucial for world records to come in the future. Previously, as seen with both Nolwenn and Dogchuckaloo, the doors would be limited up to the purchase of the Speed Cola door, which allowed both of them to buy Speed Cola. However, what Jim does in his run of the game is completely ignore the purchase of the doors leading to speed entirely, only opening up to power. This discovery made Verruckt slightly faster and a little safer, since zombies obviously had less places to spawn in. However, that by no means means this map is easy. In actuality, the fact that Verruckt was the second zombies map ever began to show its ugly colors. For instance, a crucial part to the developed strategy on this map sees the player using the electric trap by double tap whenever it is available. However, as most of you know, once this trap is active, the player is essentially trapped in the tiny little space with almost no escape, and there is a barrier that the zombies can jump through. Now, it is extremely important that this window is constantly being barricaded, as if it isn't, you are essentially a goner. However, due to the buggy nature of World at War, occasionally a zombie can jump through the barrier even if it is boarded up, which usually leads to death. Another unfortunate World at War bug is that if you were to have half of a horde of zombies on the map, there would be the occasional zombie that would get stuck in a barrier on the map, only coming out if you killed a couple zombies from the horde. This factor is what makes Verruckt insanely hard, as on high rounds the unpredictability of zombie spawns is almost suffocating. Sometimes players would simply be running their trains killing zombies with the flamethrower, and all of a sudden a zombie comes out of nowhere because they came out of a window barrier late. With Verruckt being as insane as a map as it is, these glitches in the game make the map almost a billion times harder, as they are something that the player cannot control. However, as you will see, this did not stop others from going for greatness. In the same year, in the summer of 2016, another record would be set by a streamer named Dave Private Kick on Twitch. Dave would absolutely demolish Jim's previous record by over 200 rounds, eventually making it to round 724. This sent an absolute bombshell around the World at War community at the time, making it one of the most influential turning points in the world record scene. Not only was this record the first time in a while that we had seen a record be broken by over 100 rounds, but it also sent a shock throughout the community. This shock initiated a battle to see who could get to round 1000 first, as people knew it was possible and it was filled with intense competition. This war would steadily rise, and with this new hunger for round 1000, new life was breathed into the scene, and someone was just bound to get this achievement very soon. On September 12th, 2017, a player by the name of Cell uploads a video to YouTube, and it would make World at War history. Cell was playing a very good game, moving very rapidly through rounds, and was staying extremely consistent. From a bird's eye view, this seemed like it would be the game, the final piece to put this history to silence and establish a true victor. But then, disaster strikes. Going back to what I said earlier, if a zombie were to glitch through the barrier while the player is repairing it, it would most likely mean the end of the game. Unfortunately for Cell, this is exactly what happened, but when all seemed lost, he pulled through. With no other option, Cell dives directly through the electric trap, effectively killing the zombies that came through the barrier. However, due to the electric trap being on a cooldown after its use, Cell was forced to make do with what he could. Inevitably, Cell was led downstairs into the spawn room and was completely surrounded and killed on round 809. What was supposed to be the dream run turned into an absolute nightmare in an instant, and this really does show that the Verruckt high rounds are not a joke. They could end just like that out of nowhere and completely ruin all momentum. With this devastating loss, the World at War community was even more determined to achieve 1000, and someone just had to step up and take it. On May 28, 2018, an old friend would return from the shadows and go for the round 1000 to solidify his dominance on the scene. And that old friend would just so happen to be Jim 4495. Just like Cell's game, Jim was playing absolutely outstanding while staying consistent and maintaining a good pace. It looked like this was the one, and then this happened. For the first time ever, round 1000 was achieved on World at War Verruckt after the countless attempts and people grinding to achieve this amazing feat. But once Jim hit this amazing achievement, many thought that Jim would simply hang up the cleats and move on, but he was not done. After he hit round 1000, Jim was not done yet and grinded all the way to round 1318. This was absolutely insane for the Verruckt high rounding community, as not only did Jim achieve the long-awaited round 1000, but he also did so in style by going for 300 more rounds after that. This record was so impactful that Jim is still featured in the top 5 in the leaderboards on Zombies World Records, only just being beat recently 5 months ago by a Quebecois YouTuber named New Rap at round 1405. However, despite this seemingly unbreakable record, someone had laid eyes on defeating Jim and becoming the new champion. In the midst of a global pandemic on July 6, 2020, a challenger appears to stand toe-to-toe against Jim. A runner by the name of Abu Shrif rises to challenge Jim, and although he wasn't anywhere near as fast as him, he was insanely consistent with everything he did. From everything to his trap usage and ability to keep the window barricaded, almost everything that Shrif did throughout this one was absolutely smooth. He eventually easily beat Jim's old record and continued to progress through the rounds with relative ease. However, the smallest mistake occurred on round 1817. Due to Shrif being well past the beginning of insta-kill rounds, using the MP40 wallbye nearby was a common strategy to eliminate zombies as fast as possible due to them being essentially one-shot. However, what Shrif forgot to do was buy ammo for the MP40 at the beginning of the round. This mistake would eventually cause him to panic, with the flamethrower eventually going down and ending what was once a very smooth run-up until that point. As Shrif stares at the game over screen, the game, almost taunting him, dropped a max ammo right in front of him after his death, but Shrif had nothing to be upset about. This record remains second on the leaderboard, only to one of the most legendary World at War players of all time. On November 16th, 2020, inspired by the insane record Shrif set, the World at War legend Cruppz decided to take action. Previously holding domination status in all World at War maps, including a round 10,751 on Shinanuma and a 148 on Doerksen, Cruppz was determined to crown himself the king of World at War. Throughout the span of multiple days, Cruppz would hit round 100, then round 1000, and then 1500, and there was absolutely no slowing down for this beast of a run. By making it to round 1818, Cruppz finally cemented himself as the king of World at War, essentially holding records for all 4 pillars of the mode. He did not stop there, however, continuing the fight and making it to the first ever round 2000, eventually dying at 2172. Absolutely nobody was willing to challenge this feat, and it seemed that Cruppz was the lone victor. However, Cruppz wasn't satisfied. On May 15th, 2022, he would absolutely shock the world by achieving round 3,365, adding 1,000 rounds and then some to his old record set 2 years prior. This dude was and still is an absolute beast in the Zombies World Record scene, and if you aren't familiar with him, you need to go and see some of his feats. With that, the current present leaderboard will most likely never be changed for the years to come, with the closest round to Cruppz being 1817 by Shrif. All in all, World at War high rounds are some of the most interesting in the entire series. From maps reaching 10,000 plus to insta-kill rounds, World at War high rounds are unique but also sometimes completely unfair. Combined with Verruckt's hard and tough atmosphere, this high round is feared by many and completely avoided by most. Cruppz still remains the absolute GOAT, as he still sits on on the top of the leaderboard, but who knows, maybe something will go weird and someone will beat him one day. It's been a pleasure as always, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.